Teresa asked, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lance Spicer. I'm the City Clerk of the City of Hot Springs. I've been in that position for approximately 3.5 years. So the City Clerk itself, it's an older position that's had many iterations on it, but the basic premise of it is you are the historian for the City of Hot Springs. And obviously, a lot of the things that have happened in Hot Springs, I'm sure, just by show of hands, how many folks are native to the area? Good group. So I'm not from Hot Springs. I've read much about the cultural history of Hot Springs. It's had a lot happen over its timeline. However, I'm going to pick up, I'll kind of lay it out for you. I'm going to pick up from 1986, which I mean, I was 7 years old, 1986, and then carry forward from there. 1986, the City of Hot Springs, there's a provision in state law that allows for cities to, they called it the city manager enabling act. It's 1447-101, I believe, is that code citation. However, for cities that want to organize under a city manager form, there's a process just the same as we're going for the mayor council, the aldermanic form. It's very similar. It's the same process, just in reverse. The things that have to be done, they're designated in state law. The portion that I'm going to talk about from 1986, and actually I pulled the certification from the county clerk's office, and kind of to dovetail off of what Mr. Gallis was speaking of, I'll say the apathy that you guys are speaking about. It's more clear, and I wish I would have brought the whole file with me. However, it's a lot of information, but the voter turnout, you can see the decline throughout the years. Basically, Hot Springs has had a number of elections, a lot of special elections, a good number of special elections, from Oaklawn, Mid-America, you name it, public safety sales tax, general city director elections, things like that. So it's had its fair share of special elections as well. But one thing I'd like to do is applaud you folks for apathy is obviously not something that is in this room, which is it's reassuring just from my standpoint whenever I have to look at the numbers, see what the turnouts, and it is really disappointing to see the turnouts that we get. But to pick up 1986, the turnout, and it was an election, the turnout that came to enable the city manager form of government, there was just a little over 13,000 people that turned out to vote in that particular issue. And the last time that the question was called to change back to the mayor alderman form was 1990. And that's a general election, so the numbers, obviously generals are a bit higher. The total number of votes was 10,535. So the for votes was about 4,500. The against are about 5,900. So that's a large number of people that turn out and vote. You don't get those anymore, obviously. Just a quick check that I did with the county clerk. Excuse me. There's approximately 22,655 registered voters in the city of Hot Springs, and the general what they plan for when they're doing elections, they say you might get 8-10%. So that's a fairly low number. If you think about the issues and things that come not only before the state, the county, federal even, the turnout numbers are abysmal. So apathy is something that you can definitely see the shift in the trend that has happened, obviously nationwide, but more so with the city of Hot Springs. And But as I said, over 10,000 people showed up to vote in the 1990 the mayor alderman to go back to the mayor alderman form election. But the basic setup of a city manager form versus a mayor alderman form, and I'll, if anybody has questions, stop me. I'll put the brakes on. Mayor alderman form, mayor is the supreme executive and legislative. So the power rests with the mayor, and they do so in that capacity. The city manager form is a little bit more diversified. Obviously, you have board of directors that are elected. They set policy, guidelines, and everything else that they deem to the city manager to run the day-to-day stuff. And yes, sir.
Who determines how many directors and how many aldermen? How does that work?
That is done by basically your population. The setup is currently Hot Springs has 6 wards, and the mayor is popularly elected. So you have 6 overall districts, wards, however state law calls them wards. We'll use them. That's deemed by your population. The breakdown of that.
Why would you have more aldermen?
What's that?
Why would you have more aldermen?
State statute.
Yeah. Statute said. So if you go to the mayor alderman form, basically you can have it essentially provides for you can have 12 mayor aldermen.
What is the cost to the city if you have non-paid positions versus the paid positions? And where does that funds come? Where do the funds come from?
Those type of funds are particularly derived from your general fund. General fund is the bank account outside of water and wastewater. So any type of administrative, be it a city manager, be it a mayor, whatever the case may be, those funds for those positions, forget about utilities and things like that are rate driven. But the setup on that end of it is those coming from the general fund.
And then what are those funds going to be taken?
If you have your 9 mayor, alderman set up, those funds, that would have to be derived from the general fund. So you have city manager or whatever salary is associated with that position, city clerk, city attorney, and treasurer. You would just basically derive those from those personnel salary numbers.
If you're looking for those funds and yet you can't pay the sheriffs, how are they going to take and make these funds available?
The sheriff is
That end of it would definitely take some closer scrutiny, because there would have to be a good wholesale number of cuts to pick up that personnel wise.
Well, we can't mix the county and the city. The sheriff's department is the county, but the number of aldermen in that, and you do pay them. I think you're required by state statute to pay them. I believe the pay would be the same as it is for the justices of the peace.
Yeah.
It's $400 a month. But we must keep in mind that we have existing city directors that have clamored for a long time that they should be paid. Now, we have elected not to pay them. Even the mayor has expressed an interest in paying our city directors. So we're going to have a wash when we have some changes here. We're going to have to pay a mayor, but we might not be paying the mayor the same as we pay a city manager or these other jobs. You're going to set up a structure. At the end of the day, the cost is probably going to be nominally different, and it may not be as much. It could be more, it could be less. But at the end of the day, it's just a different form of government. But you're going to be paying city directors one of these days, because most cities do pay their city directors.
Mm-hmm. And like an interesting point there, George, the setup that most mayor alderman forms have. Conway's a good example in Fayetteville. Although they don't have the city manager, they do have what they call their administrative services director or a chief of staff, or someone that is that keeps a handle on things in that regard. But to go back to the cost, possibly, the thing, and as we've noticed just in basic day-to-day services, the thing that gets you, it's not always the salary, it's that loaded, the benefits.
Right.
Healthcare, retirement, things like that. that is really where you get your lion's share of cost. So any time that you include more employees, you know, that can go up.
But like on the quorum court, and also you're not required to pay those aldermen those benefits. Again, you know, with these aren't full-time jobs, aldermen. They're much like the quorum court. The city certainly has if we think about it, the city has more things in one respect, but there's much greater population in the county. So I think cost is not a factor that the opposition or the proponents, either one, could use as a factor.
No. It honestly, it would be nominal. We haven't ran figures to figures just because you would kind of be projecting on for a mayor's salary something that you don't particularly know. Those things like that are voted on by the aldermen as well. The mayor doesn't just get to say they want to be paid $200,000 a year or something like that. It's obviously something that's fleshed out, voted on, and things like that. So those numbers we haven't been able to determine exactly. So I don't have a good answer for you on that, but just ballpark, I'd say it would be normal, just off the cuff. But the basic setup, though, like I was saying, mayor and city manager, they're similar but they're different. The city manager form is set up kind of how school boards are set up. School boards and corporate boards. You have folks that are elected. School boards is a real local common example that I can use. You elect your school board members who live within certain boundaries. They hire a superintendent to run the school because the school board sets the big policy. These are the holidays we're going to use, this kind of thing, and they use the superintendents themselves to do the discipline, the personnel issues, things like that. So the city manager form is very similar to that. The mayor alderman form, realistically, it's different in that the mayor itself is the CEO of the organization, and they are also popularly elected. So, that's the trade-off. Trying to think exactly everything I was going to step through, but as I was saying, the vote turnouts to kind of go back to some of the folks talking about polling locations and things like that. Within the city, I believe I think there is 9 total polling locations that will be open election day. And obviously, early voting is 1 week prior to the election, so and that's all done at the election commission there on Washita Avenue. And the setup with the election itself, it's the same as everyone had spoken about the millage election. It is a special election, so it's not held on the November setup. And as far as the cost of the election, I'm sure everybody's heard different numbers. The number that we're using budget-wise for the city pays for the election is approximately $20,000, and that's just based off the number of polling locations that you have open, and then you have to staff those.
So what's your anticipated voter turnout for that day? Have you done your projections on that?
Those projections are going to stay within that 4,000 number, just about. So that's what the election commission, whenever the Garland County Election Commission and the county clerk, that's kind of a number that we use as far as to kind of staff it. And you never know turnout, but if history is any projection, definitely the turnout has been on the decline, not only for general elections, but especially for special elections. And we've had, I guess, the last special election, somebody probably may know better. I think it was the City Hall one in, 2008. Bob, you know exactly? You remember? Was it? Yeah, I think it was 2008. It was the last special.
Weatherford recall.
Oh yeah, sorry. That's right when I got here. That was
1,200 votes in that one.
Yeah. So if there's certain citizen initiative elections, your turnout can drive higher or lower. George?
I think it's important to recognize when you start talking about the cost of special elections or the cost of any elections, that the cost is not the factor that you should put foremost in your mind. It's the fact that the people have a method, whether you agree with what the issue is or disagree, to bring forward something to put on the ballot, or even if it's an entity of government that brings it forward. You have the ability to put something on the government and bring it to the vote of the people. And that's what this country is about. We live in a country where we take a role in government. And for those naysayers that say, this is a waste of time and a waste of money, the practice of our style of government, our form of government, and democracy is not a waste of money, nor will it ever be.
That's a good point. The only reason that there is the cost is just thrown out there is basically to set up whenever you have a general election. Obviously, you have other municipalities participating in an election, so the costs are divvied out more so across the spectrum. So it obviously reduces the share. But the next portion that I was going to talk about was the city moving forward, if you will. The city's population, as you all know, it has been declining. I think it dropped about 600-700 people from the 2000 to the 2010 census. So now there is the population itself is in decline. However, if you divvied up the 6 wards, basically each portion of those wards, there's give or take a few, but you're looking at about 5,000, 5,500 people per ward that is represented either by a city director or a mayor alderman form. So there's that in particular won't change. The the history of Hot Springs, like as I said before, it's been a colorful one. Everyone has always thought that there's an underlying need for Hot Springs to straighten up and fly rights at times, just because things do kind of tend to go off the tracks here. But as everyone is. I mean, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know about Hot Springs. So obviously, if anybody has any particular questions, I don't know if anybody has any election questions that you'd like.
I have one question before you go into to answer the questions. Is how would this form of government change, for example, the administration of the city? In other words, your job, other job, would there be any substantive change between those two administrations or types of administrations? That is addressed in state law. They call it the effective reorganization. So, if the ballot measure passes, you basically, everyone that is in office, things you have that interim time, May 14th, the next slate of elections, everyone comes up, is in 2014 November. That's the next when I believe we have Mr. McKay, the mayor, and Karen Garcia. So 3 slots come open in November of 2014, and they're held over until that election. And then once that election takes place, city clerk, city treasurer, city attorney, and then the mayor's office at large, that you'll have an election for that. Okay. All right, and then what I'll do, just so that you understand, guys, if you want to ask a question, raise your hand. I'll recognize the first person. I'll mention the second person. That way we're not, doing, ooh, pick me, kind of stuff. So, Sandy, you'll be first, Russ, you're second, and then George, you're third.
Do all 7 people on that board have an equal vote pertaining to the things that happen all with the city?
The current setup, there is no veto power in the mayor alderman form. The mayor does have you can just as in the legislature, override vetoes by a 2/3 majority. So it's real similar the mayor alderman form is very, very similar to state level and federal level. The whole powers of an executive branch. They do have veto power.
But I'm talking about now, not the mayor form.
Oh.
City manager form.
Okay, yeah, city manager form, their votes they're all the same.
Some are the same all the time.
Yes.
Hey, Russ?
Little Rock's got a hybrid of this. I don't know how familiar with it that you are, but my question is, do you know, did they vote on this hybrid form up front, or did the alderman put it in place afterwards? And the hybrid I'm talking about is, even though they went through the change to mayor alderman, they also have a city manager.
Yes.
So do you know how that came about?
That particular thing, there was some legislation put forward. I think it was in 2005 or 6. I'm not exactly for sure. And what they did, they had taken the city manager enabling portion, and there's a provision in there for cities. I think they used 100,000 population above. They give them the opportunity to have that hybrid form. For those of you who don't know, Little Rock, they do have a city manager, Bruce Moore. He's been there for, I think, probably 10, 12, 15 years. But in 2006 or 7, they had an election, and they put it to a vote, just like, as any other form of government change goes, and they opted to organize themselves in the city manager form with a strong mayor. So it's a weird setup nationally. No place has it nationally. So this, if you
Also has the same.
okay, because there's very few that have that setup. So the mayor, there are certain departments that report directly to the mayor. There are certain departments that report to the city manager. So it's different in that regard. The mayor's salary is the same as the city manager's. I think by ordinance it's set within a percentage of it. So they're equal in pay and relatively equal in power. So it's kind of
You end up having an executive and an administrator, and the history behind that is, and I know a little bit about that,
okay.
The history behind that is that, during the advent of the progressive movement, it was all moving to the city manager form of government, and as people now, especially now in recent times, have seen the loss of political influence from the people to they decided, well, we can have the best of both worlds, which is a city manager who controls policy, okay, the will of the people, as it were, and then a city administrator, okay, that takes care of, like you said, personnel issues, staffing, those kind of administrative functions, and that seems, according to the data, to be a superior form than both of those forms. In other words, the pure city manager and the pure mayoral, strong mayoral. So, and that's why some of the like Little Rock and stuff are moving to that to gain or regain a political voice in city government.
But it's not an option in Hot Springs under state
Well,
law.
it can be. You just have to, again, go through the state to make that
It'd be
happen.
very costly to go to that, and like in the city of Tulsa, they feud constantly.
Yeah.
They've had to have the police officers at their meetings because they had to control things, so it doesn't exactly solve the problems. So.
Escalate.
Let me see. Did you have a question, George?
Lance, one of the things that about the change in the form of government, my question is, for you, is do you see any changes if we change the form of government in our problems with personnel, our problems with financing things? We have, I think I pulled this from the 2012 or 2011 budget, but we identified $80 million in recurring capital requirements, and we come up with $32 million in recurring non-capital. And our budget, when you take our $90 million budget, throw out everything except the general fund, throw out the 12-14 goes to police, we only got $9 million. We don't have the money to tear the school down. We don't have the money to to build a new fire station. We don't have any money, but yet we still have the same or greater number of employees year after year with a 5,000 person shrinking population. It doesn't appear to me that existing city management and past city management for the past few years have been very cognizant of this, and when you had to reduce your reserves at the end of the year in 2012 for your 2013 budget, we're going backwards money-wise.
And the question is?
And I don't advocate the change, but do you see that there might be any change if we change the form of government and have more aldermen than we have directors? Because we're going nowhere right now except backwards.
That's a good point. I think one of the things that you might notice with a mayor alderman form, obviously those folks would set the direction of policy for things. However, it's not necessarily going to change the needs of the city. There's, as you spoke about, there's numerous things that need to happen. I don't think that, if changing it would change any need that's there. The things that would change that definitely are, as you said, would be wholesale reductions in staffing, because the police and fire are what they are. They're and we'll leave enterprise funds out of it because they're different.
It strikes me it was like last year at the end of the year, after promising that we weren't going to get bonuses or raises until certain benchmarks were met. The benchmarks were never met, but yet we gave bonuses and raises. Mm-hmm. Now, how long can this form of government keep going this direction without us meeting a major stopping point? I mean, we've got a train wreck going, as our fire chief says.
Mm-hmm. And the point, to speak to that point, basically what will need to happen for folks that like to bend other people's ears, you really have to impress upon them your ideas. I mean, that's no different with the city manager form or mayor alderman form. If you don't have folks that are willing to implement the will of the people, I mean, that's whenever you can do recall elections with Mr. Weatherford, or at the next election, you vote someone else in.
Thank you. I want to say one thing and then I'll shut up. But business with Lance. He's very responsive to the community. He's very responsive to the individuals. I've dealt with him on matters of public health. I've dealt with him on matters of property rights and a number of things. He is very pleasant to deal with. He gets back to you. I have the highest regard for this gentleman here. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
He stole part of my thunder because actually, Lance, I've had a fairly considerable amount of interaction with Lance over the past several months with the ETJ business and the petition for the change of government interacting. It's Lance's office that was involved in doing the verification of signatures with the county clerk, and also I've gone to him numerous times for both in person and by email for information or a copy of an instrument or document, and I am just really appreciative of how prompt he has been to provide information and how courteous and how pleasant he has been in his manner, and so even though he's in a position where he's working for the current city administration and is, I guess maybe if this is successful, would have to decide whether or not he wants to run for city clerk. And I guess that could be a question. Have you thought of that? I think before you had mentioned to me you don't like the idea of elected office, but I do want to say that even though you've been on the other side, you've been very pleasant to deal with, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Clay.
Any other questions before we let him wrap up?
He didn't answer the question.
What? That he's going to run?
He's going to run.
I'm just trying to save him. Yeah. I'm just trying to save him.
I have a quick question, not a George question. Does this make you do you lose your job if the election passes?
Yes, it does.
Immediately, or how long, or?
That reorganization period. Yeah. So I mean,
How many others would lose their?
Well,
you would stay in office until there was an election and somebody else took office. If that was not you, if you ran for office, then it would be you just becoming an employee to becoming an elected representative of the people.
Please got it.
All right, the last question.
If we need to cut back on personnel, what difference does it make whether you're, which form of government? Yeah. I remember growing up, I mean, we had fewer employees and they did more jobs.
Yeah.
Just working in the clerk of court's office, when I go in there, you could go to any one of the 4 ladies that work there and they could help you with any question you wanted. As it got larger, the county grew, everybody became, oh, I can only do this job, and then this one had this job. How do you get back to where people can actually help and do more than their one little tiny little job?
And that is a good point. That's something that I failed to mention, and we have a board of directors who give direction to my boss, the city manager, and basically one thing that I'm relatively new. Obviously, the city manager is very new. The things that we notice is that the customer service that we do provide, that's what we're in the business of. We work for everybody. So for folks that think that you're too good to respond, you don't feel like picking up the trash or things like that, which that's what we're here for. We are public servants that do provide customer service. So back to your point, the thought process of compartmentalize things. Obviously, there are some complexity things with varying departments and things like that, but I do think that there are some things that we, the city, could do more efficiently, and those are things that we're certainly looking at. But the thing that we want to, that I hope that everyone has noticed or will notice, customer service. We have to be more responsive, and we have to do it in a more efficient manner. So that's something that we're definitely striving to, and it's just something that you can't flip a switch and get rid of old habits because those things do exist, bad habits, and we're trying to break them and move in a more positive direction on things.
To dovetail on Teresa's question, that attitude of this is just my little job is more reflective of someone who's been in organized labor unions. Is that part of the issue with this is only my job, you can't make me do or help or pick up the trash or take up because that's not my job?
Yeah, no, and that is a good point as well. The thought process of I've got my little domain here and this is what I plan on doing. Those, I hate to say it, government is full of silos. Full of them. Full of them. I mean, I've kind of came into this with fresh eyes for the most part, and that's something that it's like I said, it's a bad habit. People get used to doing what they're doing, and until you can shake things up and get them to think about things in a different manner and get rid of these silos and look at them as we're all part of this big team, and we can do things more efficiently and effectively, then you're kind of bumping your head against the wall. You got to make change and get rid of the silos.
Okay, here's what we got to do, because we got 3 questions, 1, 2, 3, and then we're gonna have to pull the plug because we're already running late. Okay, and then you'll stay as long as it takes, right?
Yeah.
Beat you up and ask you questions. All right, here we go. So fire away. 1, 2, 3. You, and then Lloyd. Okay, finish it up.
I just wanted to point out that irrespective of who you're sending your freedom of information request to at the city manager, city attorney, or whatever, they're going to dump it on Lance.
That's true. It'll end up on my desk.
And Lance and his assistants are the only people up there that will give that to you with a smile on their face. Lance and his gal, who know what customer service is all about. We thank you for that.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody got any other questions?
Hey, what are they doing to stimulate voter turnout?
Voter turnout. Now, I mean, if we could do, if I had the answer to that, I mean, I'd probably be some high-paid consultant.
I only ask that question because is it the people that don't turn out just feel they have no choice in what's happening and sort of why bother? Or what's the stall? Because there's gotta be something that's stalled them out to where they don't have the initiative to go forward and go vote.
I think it's generational.
Okay, we gotta wrap this up. George?
Generational, I think it's generational, you get apathy within, I mean, I'm probably in a bad generation. And probably the folks that are younger, they are.
That's the last question.
Would they vote if they could do it on the internet?
Probably.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned customer service. In the past, when I've called, trying to call a particular department, I'll get a recording a lot of times. They say, well, I'm away from my desk or whatever, and then they'll refer you to someone else, and I'll call that one, and I'll get a recording while I'm away from my desk. And it's unreal how you just keep getting recorded like that. And I don't know if there can be anything improved on that. That seems like someone ought to be looking into that.
That's one thing that we want to do, though, one thing that we've thought about and we've implemented in some departments. Bill Burrow, he's our deputy city manager, but he's also our sanitation department director. Sanitation is a well-run group. What he's done, he doesn't have voicemail. If that phone's going to ring, somebody's going to pick that phone up. Because I agree, there's nothing more frustrating.
That is not the truth out of just municipal utilities, and you can sit and sit and sit, and then you can sit some more.
I agree with George.
Already 30 minutes the other day.
Yeah, it's.
Did you want to ask a question? No. Okay. Okay, well, Lance, thank you so much. Does anybody have any announcements that they want to make?
Don't forget next Thursday night, which is April the 18th, at 5:30, we'll be having our birthday celebration, and we want everyone to come. It's going to be a potluck dinner. If anyone would like to sign a sign-up sheet to help set up beforehand and stay a little bit later afterwards to clean the building back up, please see me after the meeting. If not, plan on being there at 5:30 with a covered dish, and we're going to have a good time. Thanks.
I know that this group didn't take a position on the city form of government election, but if anyone here wants to participate in campaigning to change the form of government, see Clay or see myself, and we'll talk to you and we'll try to make a strategy. We're not finding a lot of people, but if you do have an interest, tell us what your interest and why, so we can use it with those people that have an interest. And if there is absolutely no interest, Clay and I'll go get a beer. You'll be fine. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Okay.